procedures for everything, and they stick to that. Decisions come from the top down. Your management and leadership hand down every decision. You don't have to do a lot of thinking for yourself. Employees do not make changes to things. You can't have a lower echelon employee deciding that they've got a better way to do this. They're supposed to stick to the protocol, follow the decisions that come down, and everyone has a distinct role. It's a very vertical hierarchy. I thought I had put that picture in this slide and I didn't, my bad. But it's pretty much the same picture Cookie had on his, with a vertical hierarchy being a lot of different levels, and each person has a specific job, and they only do their job, versus a horizontal one, which we'll go over when we get to the American slide in a second here. U.S. management, there's just a big cluster of America for you here in this picture. America. Leaders define a vision and determine a strategy, pass that down. Management would be more handling day-to-day operations and equipping the employees with the tools to carry out that vision. Change is more difficult, however, in the U.S. management system. Once people figure something out, once leadership hands something down, that's kind of the way it's going to be, because there's so much flex throughout the system that a big change in mentality or direction is very hard to come by and takes a lot longer to effect. Employees have input. The janitor can put something in the suggestion box that the CEO might one day actually read. And it's a much more democratic system, like everything else. Everybody gets a vote, everybody's got something to say about everything, so it's the same with a lot of our companies. Communication styles. Oh, sorry. Part of the democratic thing too is it's also a much more horizontal business structure. There's been that move in the past 30, 40 years in the US of one person being cross-trained and being able to do different things. So you have a leader, a manager, and your staff, and it's just a much shorter, there's a lot fewer steps. Everybody can do more. You can be a specialist at one thing, but you're also capable in other fields as well. Thus, you don't need as many people. Okay, communication styles. Cambodian in business and politics and family matters. It's one-way communication. The person in charge does the talking, people not in charge do the listening and follow their orders. And that's that. Versus in the US, there's always two or more directions. If it's a one-on-one, then both people get input. The boss can say something, the employee gives his feedback, the boss gives his feedback. It also allows for what can look confusing in this infographic, but ultimately there's a greater flow of information. I tend to think that works out better if you have leaders and managers, particularly managers, to manage that information flow, hence all our IT and information systems degrees that we're so fond of here. Next slide.
Wonderful. So the IT, the type of the communication style, how do you think is like a very effective way of communication? What is the media?
Oh, the medium.
How do you communicate in the USA?
In the US, it's gotten to be more and more digital now through emails and text, and of course every email is CC'd to a bunch of people. Every text message is a group text now. Yeah. So everyone in the group knows what you and somebody else on your level are talking about, including the boss, so anybody can interject at any time. It goes back to the whole democratic and group, and also the horizontal effect too. The entire workforce needs to know what, I would say one hand needs to know what the other hand is doing, but it's an octopus, all 8 hands want to know what the other 7 are doing, so.
I like that.
There's potential conflicts, because as we've discussed here, and you can just keep clicking until you get the words to come up, being almost opposite in the 4 major cultural differences in their management styles and their communication styles, there's a lot of potential for conflict there. Between a low and a high context culture, that makes the communication difficult, whereas Cambodians might be more subtle and mellow in their talking to one another. Americans tend to be more emotional and aggressive and direct with that, and those two things, you know, the higher context Cambodians, that can upset Americans for not getting all the information they think they need, because they were supposed to, a lot was implied that the American didn't pick up on because they're used to being told the details. On the flip side of that, Americans can come off as abrasive and forceful to the Cambodians. Individualistic versus collectivism, obviously, you're gonna have problems if you have American team members who only care about their job and not the success of the team or the company as much as the Cambodians tend to care more about the team and the company. Feminine versus masculine, you're gonna see the difference in Cambodians having a greater sense of equality versus Americans having a greater sense of inequality versus Americans with a greater sense of equality. High versus low power distance, obviously an American lower echelon employee would be walking up to a Cambodian boss and trying to be buddy-buddy, and that might not go over so well. Solutions, next slide. Real simple common sense stuff here. Just a mutual respect and common decency. Mutual respect for one another's cultures and for people in general, and try to be decent would be obviously the first step. Education and training so that you understand the differences and you know what they are, help you achieve the third step of being more aware and understanding how you're coming across and what your counterparts might need from you, as well as them understanding that for you. And the training side too, as Cookie had mentioned in his, it's important to have rules and regulations in place for your cross-cultural interactions. You know, American employees might need rules like, hey, don't talk to their managers the way you do our managers. You know, you go through their protocols, be respectful of that, and you could train Cambodians to be like, hey, understand that Americans, when they talk to you and they firm handshakes are not a Cambodian thing, whereas Americans, that's the big deal when you walk in the room and handshake. So I think all that, you can generate enough awareness and understanding and being respectful and decent to one another, you eventually find a balance and get through the problems.
Okay, thank you so much. Do you have any doubts, guys? Any comments?
I just like this animation.
Awesome presentation.
You don't have to play it all out.
Wonderful.